Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Fallen London. Today we're going to be carrying on with the exceptional story, The Laws of the Game. We are currently chasing a hooded figure through Charnel House. There was probably a time where Charnel House was teeming and busy, but that is long past. Now it is 4 grand stories filled with the hauntings of office work and dust. So much dust. You launch into a run through symmetrical corridors filled with closed doors. There must be a way to cut off your quarry or get ahead of them through some of these doors. Unless, of course, they know this place better than you. Let's try to cut them off. Let's use our shadowy here, I think. Let the regulator chase the figure while you get ahead to block their escape. As the regulator takes off after the figure, their shoes squeaking as they turn a corner, you move to cut them off. Your first instinct is the main doors, but you hold for a moment and hear the chase ascend. The figure must be heading to the rooftop. You manage to reach the rooftop first, hiding yourself behind a desk that for some reason someone decided to leave up here. As the quarry emerges onto the roof, you launch yourself at them. Despite your sudden and unexpected weight on their back, the person doesn't fall. You cling on as they keep moving, trying to bring them down. It takes the regulator adding their weight to the burden to finally end the chase. "Of course it's you," the regulator says as the 3 of you tangle on the ground. "You interfere in everything I do." As you and the quarry rise to your feet, you get a chance to take in a stocky man with long, dark hair and a wide mustache. You see the muscles evident beneath a long, brown coat and are glad that you didn't have to try and keep him held down. "I suppose," continues the regulator while panting, "I have the pleasure of introducing the Bishop of Suffolk." Oh, we haven't seen him for a long while." Despite the size of their office, the regulator is doing their best to pace back and forth, more or less turning with each step. The Bishop of Suffolk, meanwhile, sits calmly before the desk, his hands clasped together in his lap. "I should have known it was him. All of the letters, the obsession with fitness," says the regulator, half to themselves. "I guess I had hoped he'd finally gotten the message that I didn't need his help." The bishop leans a little forward. "And I will always be there when you need my help, even if you don't realize that you need it. I owe your father that much, at least." The regulator swivels to face the bishop, their usual calmness overtaken by fury. "Don't you dare mention my father!" A serene half-smile appears on the bishop's face as he relaxes back into his chair. His eyes settle on the laws of the game as silence falls. Let's ask the regulator how they know the bishop. The pieces are coming together. "The single survivor of my father's squad I told you about. This is him," explains the regulator. "For whatever sense of misplaced guilt he's carried back from there, he's interfered in my life ever since. Thanks to him, I've been interred in beastly schools, forced into dreary jobs, and saddled with acquaintances and courtships I never asked for." The bishop opens his mouth to speak. "No," says the regulator. "I've heard it too many times before. I don't know what happened out there. I don't want to know why you are racked with so much guilt about my dad. That's between you and his soul, God rest it. I want nothing from you and no more than that." "Not even this job?" says the bishop. The regulator sighs. Let's ask the bishop how he knows the regulator. It always pays to get both sides of a story. "I was the chaplain in his father's regiment, a fine man that I was proud to serve beside in the war of '68. After..." The bishop hesitates for a moment, eyes stuck, perceiving some scar of the past. I made it out. He didn't. The whole patrol, and I was the only one. The bishop's eyes lock on yours. They burn with zeal. When I arrived back in London, I vowed to the Lord that I would devote my life to protecting those whom my comrades had left behind. I try to carry the love and wishes of the Regulator's father with me. I use my connections to give them the best chances, because that's what he would have wanted. I see little wrong with that. Shall we ask why the bishop has been sneaking around? Why wasn't he upfront about being their benefactor? The bishop looks to the Regulator. Would you have accepted the position if you had known I was behind it? The Regulator shakes their head. No. I told you I didn't want you meddling in my life. I know, the bishop replies, and I meant to keep that promise, truly. I know you won't believe me, but I didn't put you forward for the role just to help you. We wanted the same thing. I wanted football taken seriously, and so did you. You can see from the Regulator's face that they don't believe a word. I also knew that if you had any idea that it came from me, you'd turn it down. So I kept my involvement hidden. So, Mr. Bishop, why do you want to regulate football? The Regulator petitioned for years. Why now? Yes, the Regulator says. Why the sudden interest? The bishop picks up the laws of the game from the table and flicks through it. I've known many people who seem to love the sport in the same way that I do my faith. They sing their hymns of their favorite teams, gather every week to celebrate their team's endeavor. He holds the book up. This book is nearly as heavy as the one I am used to holding. It has good heft to it. It's not just about the game. It's about what it promotes. Communal and physical health. Shared identity. A belief in fairness. He places the book back down on the desk with a thump. We might need all of that in the not-too-distant future. Let's ask the bishop whether he plays football. Does he have his own experiences with the game? Once, the bishop replies, his eyes once again lost in some painful memory. The Regulator flicks a look at you and mouths something you don't quite catch. The bishop does, though. Don't shy on account of my feelings, such as they are. Yes, it was the New Year's Day game. I'd held back, but that day... The bishop pauses, then addresses the Regulator. Your father was a tremendous opponent. Alright, let's press the bishop about the benefits of football. Why does he care so much about communal and physical health? What more is there to understand? The bishop answers. Camaraderie, competition, fitness. It's a sport that promotes everything London lacks and needs. I saw your games today. The amount of running about, the fever pitch of emotions. Why, there's no sport like it. You see something click in the Regulator's mind. They're almost hissing as they speak. That's it, isn't it? I understand now. Understand what, my friend? The bishop places a calming hand on the Regulator's shoulder. They bat it away. You forget that I grew up hearing your sermons, your self-righteous Sunday schools, all that rot about the fibre of the nation, about fitness being an act of faith. You don't want players. You want recruits, fighting fit for the next campaign. The bishop begins to rise from his seat. Nothing so urgent. Not yet. Keeping our society fit and active, and united, has benefits for us all. The bishop rises. As he leaves his seat, he taps the cover of the laws of the game with 2 fingers. I have made my own promises. I'm counting on you to create a game that is robust and fortifying for the health of all of us in this city. We needn't be caught unprepared again. I trust you can deliver on that, he says as he strides out the room. He doesn't wait to hear if the Regulator has a reply. The regulator stands in silence, listening to the sounds of the bishop leaving. Eventually you hear the slamming of the front doors of Chancel House and footsteps fading on the cobbles. The regulator slumps down into their chair, their forehead resting on the Book of Laws. Well, let's compare notes. You still need to go over the last game. After a long couple of minutes, they rise again with a groan. And I suppose we should talk about the last game. On the subject of the Bishop of Suffolk, it will not be drawn. I can't think about him right now, they say. We have work to do. I'll face the question of whether I should be doing it after. That was a rough one, the regulator begins. I'd hoped that I'd be chosen, rather than putting anyone else through a pummeling like that. If your ears have stopped ringing, we have two possible rules to discuss. First up, the hacking. The Lavender House rules make for a remarkably violent game. I have my reservations, but as an unbiased author of the laws, I see the appeal it has to fans and players. I love a crunching tackle as much as the next person, at least when I'm not on the receiving end of it. Then there's the mascot. A curious detail, they seem to add both ceremony and frivolity to the game. Even if we don't use them in the same way, a special player with their own rules and permissions could be a delightful addition. It's not so far from a goalkeeper, after all. What are your thoughts? Which element did you prefer? Now let's go with the mascots and costumes, I think. Mascots were a great addition to the game, though maybe someone else can be one next time. I admit, I was leaning that way myself. I could imagine all kinds of ways that we could incorporate them into the game. Perhaps a super striker whose goals are worth double, or someone who is never allowed to leave the midfield. Or maybe each team's goalkeeper can don a costume of their own design, with restrictions of course. The regulator scribbles down your ideas as you talk over the game and its implications for the rulebook they are making. The regulator finishes scribbling down your thoughts and ideas from the last game. Superb, they say. We've got a lot to go on here. I suppose I wrap up the laws of the game quickly, so we're ready for the showcase match. Well, what comes next? After your latest meeting with the Bishop of Suffolk, it seems like this will be more than a simple friendly. The regulator smiles as you ask them what comes next. Well, they say, thanks to your help, we have a good understanding of the game's variants and what makes them special. I think I need some time to reflect on everything and pull some suggestions together. There's a noise from the courtyard outside the office's window. Come on, you hear someone shout. The regulator sticks their head out of the window to look down. I'm not sure we're going to get much time to think tonight. You follow their gaze down to see an assembly of the tournament's players gathered below. The scamp is on the shoulders of one of the Venderbight players, shouting up to you. We won all of our games. We definitely wouldn't have done that without your help, says the regulator, as if to back them up. You hear the bruiser and the sweeper chanting about being champions. The rules can wait until tomorrow. Let's go and celebrate with the team. Okay, let's prepare for the showcase match. You meet the Ardent Regulator in their office the morning after the team's celebrations. All of the papers that were on their desk have been swept onto the floor. In their place is the manuscript of the laws of the game, alongside their notes from the tournament and a diorama of a football pitch, complete with tiny players. The regulator is painting white lines onto the mud of the pitch as you enter. The manuscript has been left open to one side. The open page is full of furious crossings out and looks to be abandoned. Let's ask about the regulator's morale. Are they still upset about learning the identity of their benefactor? The regulator finishes painting a line on the pitch and cleans their brush before replying. I'm not sure. I thought I was pursuing my dream. It turns out it's in service to his goals. I can't trust the bishop's motives. They pull the manuscript towards them, pondering the scribbled page. I've been second-guessing myself. I was so certain that this was the right thing to do for the game. But if the bishop is funding me, am I just handing over a thing I loved, that my father loved, To serve an old grudge? Let's ask about his motives. The regulator must have suspicions about what they are. Growing up, the regulator says after a pause to think, the bishop was always speaking about another war. Young people should be strong, obedient and ready. He demanded I fill my evenings with a variety of clubs in order to exercise the body, the mind and the soul. When he offered me a scholarship, it was of course to a military school. The regulator's voice quietens as they recall the past. I only spent time with him alone on a few occasions. Love thy neighbour, he said, and I've never met a man more perceptive or considerate of an individual placed in front of him. But hell is our neighbour too, and from that remove, he's a brute. At a large enough scale, belligerence is all he can conceive. He's always seen another war coming. I think he sees it as his duty to prepare the city for it. He means to take something like the schedule I had growing up and enact it for all of London. Does he still want to go ahead with all of this? Perhaps as a way they could refuse the bishop's influence. The regulator picks up their notebook from the desk and flicks through it. There's nearly a decade's worth of matches here. Between this notebook and all the others I've kept, they pick out choice pages for you. I spent years working on this, getting the other teams to go along with it. I can't abandon it now. A resigned smile forms on their face as a grim thought occurs to them. If I stopped, the bishop would likely have enough to complete it anyway. Only then I wouldn't be here to resist his worse ideas. The regulator lines up some of the tiny figurines on the diorama of the pitch. When we play tomorrow, we'll have one chance to show the city what football should be. If the bishop has his way, football may forever be a soulless thing. Its beauty and magic will be buried under discipline and structure. The regulator sighs as they pick up a quill and dip it into their ink pot. They tear out the scribble-ruined page from their manuscript. The laws form the terrain we fight our battle on. Football's future will be won on the pitch. Let's help the regulator prepare for the showcase match. You've made your suggestions, now it's time to codify them into law. You spend the rest of the day working with the Ardent Regulator to write the rules for football. They have most of the basics already covered. The size of the teams, the length of the games, how infringements and fouls should be punished. All that's left is to work in the rules and insights carried forward from the games that you have played. Done, says the regulator, handing you the quill. Please sign here. You have gone above and beyond in helping me to create these rules. Your name should be on them, alongside mine. With the book signed, the regulator wraps it in a canvas and places it in their bag. I must take it to be copied. The bishop will want to read this before the showcase match. Go, get some rest. You'll need it for tomorrow. The showcase match begins. It's the talk of the city. Even arriving early, there are already people milling around outside of the temporary erected terraces in Jekyll Gardens, hoping to get a ticket or find some other way into the ground. Good morning, everyone, says the Ardent Regulator as players from the tournament's 4 teams assemble on the pitch. Today we are going to be working as one team, playing against a squad chosen by my benefactor, the Bishop of Suffolk. Together we are going to be showcasing the new laws of the game. On cue, a scamp rushes over. He is weighed down by a teetering sack of manuscripts, almost as tall as he is. As he arrives, their weight finally overwhelms him, and the bound papers crash to the floor. The regulator waves away the scamp's apology. They lift one foot to pose dramatically on a sheaf of fallen manuscript. Now you may believe that this is just a showcase game, but there is much more at stake. This game will determine the future of football. How we play here will sway the hearts and minds of all who watch it. It is a battle written in these manuscripts fought between 2 possible games. An anarchical, beautiful game of the people, and a game of regimented order and physicality. The Ardent Regulator lifts a manuscript high. Today we play out that battle. Let's shake the hands with the referee. Why do they look so familiar? As the players around you break into cheers, you spot a figure walking towards you across the field. Despite having ditched his vestments for a pair of shorts and a striped vest, you instantly recognize the bishop. "There are the roars of an impassioned team," bellows the bishop as he claps the regulator on their shoulder. "Today is going to be a fine contest." The bishop turns to address the players. "As you may have guessed, I will be officiating today's game. I want to assure you that despite my hand in putting together the opposition team, London United, I will be completely impartial." The cautious sweeper nudges you. That doesn't sound likely. If the bishop heard them, he doesn't show it. "I wanted to wish you all good luck for today's game. Once those stands fill up, it'll feel like the whole of London is here to see you. Let's show them how entertainingly physical football can be." A few of the players half-heartedly clap as the bishop pulls the regulator to one side to ask them questions about a few of the rules. With the game approaching, the stands fill with people. Packed into the terraces, a carnival atmosphere takes over. The crowd entertains itself by chanting and singing. Food sellers pick their way through the masses, and the smells of boiled sausages, fresh eels and toasted nuts drift across the pitch. As you warm up, performers keep the crowds entertained. "Are you ready?" asks the regulator as you wait for the bishop to finish a speech to the crowd. The regulator is jogging on the spot, doing a poor job of hiding their nerves. "Remember, it's not just about winning this match. We need to make sure that the crowd falls in love with the right version of football." The bishop finishes his speech and blows his whistle. You rush onto the pitch alongside the rest of Chancel House officials. You can feel the crowds cheer beneath your feet. "That's a lot of people," says the scamp, looking uncharacteristically unsure. The ancient striker ruffles his hair. "All the more people to impress with your skills." Well, let's kick off the game. Your team has won the coin flip. The entire stadium waits for your first move. The stadium falls quiet as the bishop blows his whistle. The sound of leather striking leather echoes as you play the match's first pass to the regulator. It is answered by a swell of enthusiastic cheers as both teams spring into action. Your team starts by playing simple passes among themselves, hoping to find calm amidst the roaring crowd. The regulator passes to the ancient striker, who plays it to the Venderbight captain, who lays it off to the stork-masked rival. As they collect the ball, a member of London United crashes into them, winning possession with a heavy tackle. The Bishop of Suffolk motions for play to continue. Your team doesn't find the calm it needs. The team that the Bishop has put together seems to have been picked on athletic merit. They are tall, fast and strong, each of them eager to fly into a tackle the moment you string more than a couple of passes together. "Do you like my team?" the Bishop asks as he pulls you to your feet. Following a tackle that was closer to a shoulder barge. "I've spent weeks scouting the leagues to find the most physically adept players. This is what a football team should look like." As you pick up the ball to take up the resulting free kick, the regulator and a player you don't recognize gather with you. "We need to do something to get into the game," says the regulator. "Maybe there's something from our previous games we can draw on." Your mysterious teammate nods their agreement, bells jangling in their hair. Up close you notice the constellations of bruises across their body. Of course! This is the bee from the Lavender House Wanderers, out of that costume for the first time. "As much as I enjoy seeing you get hurt, my rival bee," they say. "We need to show them that we can't be intimidated by pure thuggishness. So, 3 options. We can draw on dance. Use the correspondence to trick your opponents. We can hit the ball with a mallet. The Venderbight captain has quite a selection for you to choose from, or we can have your team block their players as you dribble. Rough and efficient play. Beat London United at their own game. I think we're going to dance. If the regulator is right about football being the beautiful game, then this game needs a moment of beauty to open it up. As you place the ball on the ground, ready for your free kick, two masked players from the No Names Club dance around you. As the orange of the blaze ignites in your vision, you see the patterns of the match around you. The circles within circles. The ball, the dancers, your teammates stood in just the right positions. The stands enclosing them all. They all seem to draw closer as you breathe in. Swing your foot and unleash the ball towards the goal. The wall of opposing players, their unconscious sigil of solidarity broken by the scamp in their midst, jump to block it. It loops above their heads. The goalkeeper leaps, arms outstretched. They meet the blazing ball with their palm to stop its flight. As they land, they scramble around to claim the ball. They find only a scorch mark remains. The flaming orb was a feint, drawing the attention of the crowd and your opponents. As the goalkeeper saved the ball, the regulator dribbled up the wing. As the keeper rolls around to put out the flames burning on their kit, the regulator crosses to the ancient striker. She nods the real ball into an empty net. Chancel House officials 1, London United 0. The tie is tense and finely balanced. While your team shows better skills on the ball, the opponent's fouling slows down your play. Though their passing is much worse than yours, they play effective long balls for their taller players to try and win in the air. They are playing a percentage game. They're not afraid of manipulating the odds in the favour. Another one of the high balls flies above your head. As the cautious sweeper jumps to head it away, a London United player launches it into her, his elbow swinging out to catch her in the face. Neither of them win the ball, but it rolls free into the box. An opponent reaches it first and whacks the ball past the sombre goalkeeper. As the crowd cheers, the London United players do 10 push-ups in celebration. It's a rule that didn't make it into the laws, but it seems to have been drilled into them by the bishop. The crowd cheers again as the opposing players flex their muscles, lining up for a restart. With the London United players distracted by their posturing, you take the kick quickly. Your team flies forward. A series of passes gets the ball to the wing, but the stalk-masked rival is waiting to cross it. When the ancient striker rises to meet the cross, she throws in an elbow of her own to fend off a defender while nodding the ball into the net. It's time for some celebrations of your own. Your response might affect the referee's decision. So we can either huddle around your mascot, do the celebratory dance of the bells and taunting, or we can perform an improvised celebration. Meanwhile, the bishop is hollering at you to do 10 press-ups and a lap around the stadium. I guess we'll huddle around our mascot. While they are not part of your on-field team, each team is allowed a mascot to help rouse the crowd and distract the opposition. As long as they don't enter the bounds of play, almost anything else is permitted. You celebrate your goal by encircling your mascot. Each player takes one of the ribboned bells attached to the costume as they dance, weaving above and under each other's arms. As you circle, the mascot raises their throat to the sky and lets out a swarm of paper bees that drift into the stands. The crowd roars in approval. For the rest of the half, your mascot prowls the touchline. It encourages the crowd when their chants quieten, as well as purposefully distracting the opposing players with well-timed jangling. The remainder of the first half is a slog. London United are brutal and efficient, drilled to military precision and unafraid to barge right into your teammates in pursuit of the ball. The Chancel House is more skilled, there can be no question, but your opponent's discipline makes up for a lot of shortcomings. The scamp showboats in front of the crowd, and a United player crunches into him. Your appeals are met with deaf ears. The pace slows. The crowd's cheering ebbs. By the end of the first half, it's clear the match is at an impasse. The bishop blows his whistle to stop play. Your team gathers in the stadium's dressing room at half-time. Much more spacious affair than the sheds at Chancel House. You can't even hear the other team through the walls. As you suck on brined fungi, the regulator stands to address you. We're beating them. I know that feels amazing, but we have to remember that today, that's not what's important, they begin. We have the crowd on our side, and what matters is keeping it that way. We've been able to show them that football can be wondrous, that moments of magic are part of its appeal. As the game continues, though, I have no doubt that the bishop will try anything to stamp that out. We must remain vigilant. They make use of the extra space as they talk, emphasizing their points with broad gestures. At one point, your eyes meet, and it's as if you can feel the heat of the regulator's dream burning behind them. As they talk, this flame catches unevenly through the team. While some cheer, others are struggling to let go of their desire to win the game. The regulator turns to you as the team leaves for the tunnel. I did all that I can, they say. The rest will depend on how we lead them on the pitch. I'm counting on you. You both join your team to line up in the tunnel, waiting for the bishop to lead you out. When the bishop appears from the referee's locker room, however, he's no longer wearing the traditional black and white stripes. He's not even back in his vestments. He's wearing a London United kit. The bishop throws his referee's shirt at the regulator. It's my turn, he says. You've had your chance to make an impact on this match. It's only fair that I get a chance to make mine. The bishop raises a thick eyebrow, daring the regulator to protest. Their complaints go unsaid. Who better to officiate the game than the person who wrote its laws? I'm counting on you to do so fairly. The Bishop of Suffolk cracks his knuckles as he turns to his team. Come, my companions, let us show them how football should be played. The regulator is left looking aghast as London United charge out of the tunnel. The presence of the bishop seems to have ignited the crowd, whose roars shake the walls. The regulator clasps your forearm and begins rolling something past your hand. I'm counting on you. Lead this team as its captain. They pull the captain's armband into place on your forearm. Don't let him tear out this game's heart. You lead the Chancel House officials outside and wait for the game to restart. As the bishop kicks off, your team looks to you for guidance on how to approach the second half. Let's try to take control of the game. The bishop can't influence the game if he doesn't have the ball. Oh no, we lost the nature of football. The moment that London United kicks off, you sprint forward. As the bishop receives the ball from one of his teammates, you arrive to block his passing options. He turns his head left and right, looking for any open allies, but your teammates have followed your move and have blocked all recourse. Most players would panic in this situation, but not the bishop. You step forward to pressure him some more, but in doing so, you spring his trap. As your momentum carries you forward, his shoulders round. He charges forward in a bullish dribble, using his shoulder to barge past you. He drives straight towards the goal, knocking aside anyone who gets in his way. It takes the bruiser and the sweeper working together to finally slow his momentum. As they impede him, the bishop slings himself forward. The regulator's whistle blows. Penalty! The bishop takes it with such force that the net rips from the frame. As you await repairs, the regulator sidles over. I'm sorry, I've got to call it fairly. Even if he was looking for a penalty, it was still a foul. Oh no. It's 2-2. The bishop's presence deforms the rhythm of the game. As much as you work against it, everything begins to flow around him. London United are still playing their rugged percentage football, but with the bishop at the end of their moves, the odds have shifted. Time and time again they play the ball to their newfound talisman. Whenever he receives the ball, he doesn't look to pass or cross, instead choosing to dribble directly towards your goal. As he does so, he combines the physicality of wrestling with impeccable knowledge of the laws. He smashes his way forwards, usually either ending up in a shooting position or drawing a foul. It doesn't always pay off, but the second half rushes past. His efforts win London United 2 goals and the adoration of the crowd. Every time he sets off into another of his runs, people rise to their feet in anticipation. After yet another run, you help the bruiser to her feet. "We need to do something," she says as she wipes mud from her face. "We won't win, in any sense of the word, if we let him be the hero." "Well, let's focus on our own style. It's the only option we have. Your team can work out how to play around this." You tell your team to keep focused and calm. Among them, they've played against all kinds of teams. You're confident that they can figure things out. As the half progresses, the momentum begins to shift in your direction. The sweeper and the bruiser slow the bishop by exploiting his over-exuberance to draw him into committing fouls. The ancient striker drops deeper when she can to help win defensive headers. You slow down the play, passing around your opponents to keep them far from the ball. As another one of the bishop's charges results in failure, you sense that the crowd has turned. They begin to cheer as you weave pass after pass around your frustrated rivals. Still 2-2. As the match draws to a close, you've at last managed to turn the tide against the bishop and his team. You have a chance to make a final play before the whistle blows. You work the ball forward, dribbling through the centre of the pitch. As an opponent rushes towards you to make a tackle, you flick a pass out to the wings. The fresh-faced scamp cross-drifts towards the ancient striker. Just as they're about to head it, the bishop appears to reach the ball first. It goes out for a corner. The enthusiastic bruiser sidles up to you as you line up for the corner. "We only need to score one more goal and the match is ours. Imagine the look on the bishop's face if we win." The ancient striker huddles closer. "Listen to the crowd. We've already won them over. We need to make sure we don't throw that away. I'm close to hanging up my boots, but the scamp's not. I don't want him having to play the bishop's version of football. So we can showcase the regulator's football, put on a display to win the fans over, once and for all. Or we could just focus on scoring. No fancy tricks, just get the ball in the net. No, we're gonna showcase." Going to the football is no different from watching a circus act, a stage play, or grim Josiah plucking a violin in the pub's back room. You're always seeking that one moment that will live with you for the rest of your life. Today, you conjure that magic for the crowd. It starts with the Venderbight captain's mallet. They swing it hard to take the corner, but instead of hitting the ball with it, they let the mallet go. It flies through the air for you to catch. Defenders fooled. The captain kicks the ball into the box. You strike it with the bottom of the mallet's handle, bouncing it over the bishop's head. As you step past, you hit the ball hard towards the goal, not to score, but to send it cannoning off, ready for your next trick. Your team continues to hold on to the ball, while your mascot puts on the performance of their life on the sidelines. Your every move is punctuated by exaggerated gestures that cause a cacophony of jingling bells. The crowd bursts into laughter as the mascot mimics the infuriated bishop who is desperately trying to marshal his team. In the chaos, the ball falls to you. Your eyes lock with those of the stork-masked rival. Without a word, you both begin to dance. The ball rises between you. And, as the bishop rushes to take control of it, it blossoms. The leather of the ball unpeels, revealing a fire beneath. As the crowd gasps, your movements capture their sensations, the stamping of feet on the terraces, the pressing of shoulders keeping you warm, the release of tension after a goal. As the ball burns out, there's a glimpse of the regulator's love in the flames. The noise of the crowd is relentless. They cheer every pass, every missed tackle. It takes nearly half a minute for anyone to realise that the referee's whistle has blown. The moment the regulator's whistle blows, anarchy reigns. Fans clamber over the barriers of the stands and onto the pitch. First a handful, and then a horde. Initially, they surround you, the regulator and the other Chancel House players. They shake your hands, bombarding you with questions about football and how they can get involved. It's not long before a festival atmosphere takes hold. A few people find match balls and start kickabouts. Others make their own, using balled-up jackets. Food vendors pile extra portions onto their grills as families picnic in the terraces and watch myriad games of football unfold. In amongst all of this cheer and goodwill, the regulator and the bishop meet. "Well, I have to hand it to you," says the bishop after a few awkward moments of silence. "Your version of football seems to have won people over." The bishop offers the regulator his hand. So we can encourage the regulator to shake the bishop's hand, a chance for reconciliation regardless of the outcome, or we can brush past the bishop. The regulator has made it clear how much the bishop's meddling has cost them. I am a strong believer in, even if it is someone that you absolutely despise, if someone offers their hand to shake their hand, you should shake their hand. Just the kind of person I am. Maybe that's a British thing. I don't know. Let's encourage him to shake the hand. For a moment, it looks like the regulator will turn the handshake down. But then they take the bishop's hand. "This doesn't undo anything," they say. "I need you to understand that you can claim no part of this. You nearly ruined everything that I worked for." The bishop is an unflinching man. And yet, a shadow passes over his face at the regulator's words. "I had no intention of ruining your work, only to guide it in the city's interests." Then, before the regulator can speak, "I can see now that I misjudged what those were. I am... No apologies," the regulator says, softening a little as they take back their hand. "I don't think we're there yet." The bishop nods. Some kind of barrier between them has been overcome. The two stand silent for a moment. With a final nod, the bishop begins to walk away. "Thursday," says the regulator. "I hear some of your clergy are organising a game of football. I'll be watching it. Perhaps I'll see you there." Everyone gathers at Chancel House. All of the original players from your team, and all of those from the tournament. The enthusiastic bruiser carries a keg of beer into the entry hall and serves drinks in dusty glassware and dried up ink pots. You spot the fresh-faced scamp being berated by the ancient striker for flinching a drink, despite being much too young. Elsewhere, the sombre goalkeeper has found enough interested players to start a game of cricket. You watch as the cautious sweeper is struck out for a leg before wicket. They start an argument about the stupidity of not being able to kick the ball. After a little while, the regulator pulls you to one side. "Thank you," they say, "for helping me create the laws and for helping me deal with the bishop. Today the beauty of football won out over those who would corral it. I will continue to tend the game, adding to its rules to incorporate everyone's vision of what the sport should be." Your moment is interrupted as the other players surround you both. 3 cheers for the regulator! Shouts the scamp. 3 cheers for football! Let's enjoy ourselves. Your work is done. All that remains is to celebrate it with your teammates. You spend the night reminiscing with your teammates, sharing memories of the games that you played. You make new memories too, enduring the cautious sweeper's football-inspired poetry, playing cricket with a football to the sombre goalkeeper's horror, the enthusiastic bruiser starting an arm wrestling competition, which she inevitably won. Inevitably, though, the night runs out of hours. Morning arrives and the players begin to drift away. Eventually, so do you. You walk a part of your way home with the regulator, the scamp, and the striker. After you split from them, bound in different directions, you spend a moment watching the trio. They walk, arms across each other's shoulders, swaying as they sing the chants of the terraces. We gained a captivating ballad and a memory of a tale, and this concludes the laws of the game. I don't think there's going to be an epilogue. I don't think there's going to be a card either. That kind of feels like the end. Oh no, the sure-footed investments come back. The Portinari dance hall. Should I look at that? This episode has gone on very long. I'm going to click it. Let's find out. This is for anyone who has seen the exceptional story before this one. You put hard-earned money into the Portinari dance hall. Well, you put money into it. This is where it all pays off. Or doesn't. Let's pay a visit to the weary debaucher in his office. Ah, my valued investor. Pleased to see you. I have your first payment right here. The debaucher gets up from his plush chair, bumping a glass of Greyfields with his elbow. He extracts an envelope from his safe, sniffs it, then hands it over with a bow. The first of many. See you again soon. You slip the envelope inside your clothing and go about your day. Hey, we gained 150 pennies. Let's go. Free money, everyone. But this is where I shall end this episode. Although I am not a huge fan of football, I enjoyed that exceptional story more than I expected, mostly because of the fallen London nature of it. You know, dancing, mallets, mascots. I find it all very funny. There was a lot of text in that exceptional story as well, which is something I'm not quite used to. I've worn my voice out, especially today. There's just tons of reading. Crazy. But I shall thank you all so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know what you think. Your comments are greatly appreciated. Thank you again to the members of the channel and the coffee supporters. It really does help me keep the channel going, keep making these videos. And I guess next week, or the week after, we shall have a look at Arcana, which is the next exceptional story. But as always, see you next time.